Welcome to Excalibur's 2016 YFS elections debates. Today we are joined by the candidates running for VP campaigns. The debate format will be as follows. We will start with introductory remarks, followed by a few questions posed to the candidates, and we will end with concluding remarks. Without further ado, here are our candidates.
Hi, my name is Anthony Brum. I'm running for the Vice President Campaigns and Advocacy position with the Lift YU party. I'm a Glendon student. I work both at Kiel and at Glendon, so I do understand the struggles. I am in my third year. I am doing Honors Specialist in International Studies with a bilingual degree in French. And yeah, that's the introductory for me.
Okay, hi, my name is Rowan Habib. I'm also running for VP Campaigns and Advocacy in the upcoming YFS elections. I am running with the slate called Student Action. I am a second-year sociology student. I'm also in the concurrent education program. I am also doing a minor in English, so that's pretty cool. That's about it.
Great. So I know we talked a bit before about issues, and obviously there was a very big event on campus earlier today. And already I'm being sort of peppered with questions from the community. And one question I saw that actually came up was, what is the difference between YU Divest and BDS? So how do you respond to students' concerns about YU Divest? For example, is YU Divest targeting any one country in particular?
Okay, so BDS is a campaign that started within Palestine. Palestinian people asked for solidarity and they asked for support. BDS stands for Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions. The YU Divest committee, coalition, they focus on a general weapons divestment campaign. Because BDS originated within Palestine, they are asking for support for companies that specifically supply to Israel. Because this is a general weapons divestment campaign, they're two different things. They may support Israel, yes they do. They supply the United States though, they supply Saudi Arabia, they supply Sri Lanka, they supply several different countries, and we need to stop investing and supporting all of these countries, not necessarily just Israel.
So I agree with all of what she just said. BDS does come from Palestine. It's a pro-Palestine movement against the Israeli state itself. Divestment is specifically general for weapon divestment. It is to take our mutual funds that are at York University and to divest from the arms that are being produced through these funds that we're providing to these companies that are within our mutual funds, that are within our stocks. Divestment specifically focuses on avoiding those things and avoiding those funds and going through other means to support our students, to support our scholarships, and to support bursary programs at the university. I think it has to be a movement that is also looking towards where we can better find different stocks and different mutual funds. And I think it comes to question of how we are budgeting with the university and where we're putting our money, because this is student money student money has an opinion. Student money has different voices. And I think the university has to represent that to the best of its ability. Talking to students, we realize that we need to divest from these things. And we should not be pinpointing one country, because I think it should be it should be a broad statement that we shouldn't be supporting any arms at all across the world. I think my partner over here would also agree with me that she would support that this divestment is necessary across the board and not just in one particular area, but in every single area. Whereas BDS specifically focuses in on the Palestinian perspective towards the Israeli arms and munitions that are specifically being funded there as well.
What differentiates you from the other candidate if you agree on the issues? So seeing as there was a considerable overlap between your answers, I'm just wondering how sort of the two of you differentiate yourself from the other candidate.
So how we differentiate ourselves is based on e-voting, this policy specifically, or other policies.
How do you differentiate yourself as a candidate?
Why should why should one student vote for one candidate over another?
Well, we have different policies that are reflecting in different areas of our campaign. So an example that would be really good to choose would be e-voting. Because we both have a different view for e-voting. I agree with the sentiment that accessibility does not mean convenience, and convenience doesn't mean accessibility. But I do think that e-voting, like Glendon College, like the rest of the colleges have done, like York University administration have taken to an effect, E-voting works for the best of the university. We do go to a commuter campus, and it does not represent the fact that it will be accessible, but it will represent that more students will have the availability to choose to vote, because not everyone can make all those voting days. It's Tuesday to Friday. What if you're only here on Mondays? This is an issue. What if you are limited yourself to disabilities with an accessible an accessible device. Sorry about that. An accessibility device. What if you're limited to those motions and some of those polling locations are not accessible? We do our best, and the YFS does their best, and the elections committee does their best to fulfill all those needs, but sometimes there are limitations because York University is not a fully accessible location. There are locations on both Glendon and Keele campus that are not accessible, that need to be changed. By 2025, Ontario needs to be accessible. We as a university need to have an accessibility audit, another policy issue that might be different or not mentioned between the candidates, like myself to Rawan. There are other things. Could you think of something that would be different with our policies?
In all honesty, I don't think it matters what the difference is between us. I think it matters what appeals to students. We're both here because we want change. We're both here because we want to do something on campus. We want to make this the best campus that it can possibly be. Whether we have differing opinions on things,
or similar
opinions, like, yes, we definitely agree on a lot of things. We have very similar interests in a lot of cases, correct? But
where do you mainly disagree? Is it not just on the e-voting?
No, honestly, I don't know.
Do you guys have any wedge issues?
Wedge issues?
Wedge issues. Do you disagree on things like abortion or gun control or weed legislation?
I think those issues that you're mentioning are international conflicts. They are national concerns, and they're national politics. But I think for both of us, if I may, I think student-centric issues. As we've both talked, we've been out every single day talking to students, getting those votes, garnering personalities,
what about the
learning.
investment? Isn't that internationally focused also?
Internationally focused, but student-led.
Students are always at the forefront of change. Without the student movements, there won't be much change.
Absolutely.
Do you think pro-life groups should have a space on campus?
Pro-life groups?
Yeah, pro-life groups.
On campus?
Yeah, like in the student center.
Do you have an opinion? Because I need time to think about that.
Yeah, as do I, to be honest.
It's an issue among campuses across the country. Some student unions are banning them from campus. Some student unions haven't decided yet what to do about it. A lot of people think it's a free speech issue. Some of them think it's a hate speech issue. So I'm just curious where you guys fall.
I think, and I believe that the ability to choose who gets student space is in itself innately a little bit messed up, because they're all students. They all have issues that are concerning to themselves. They have an opinion. And in Canada, what we support is freedom of speech, but we refuse to accept hate speech. That is the difference that we share across our neighbors and across our borders.
Is pro-life speech?
It's not hate speech. It's not hate speech. That is not hate speech. They have an opinion and they're allowed to express their opinion. But what's the difference is that when it infringes or it becomes bombardment, it becomes spamming, it becomes overwhelming, or it might reduce the freedom of other people to speak. When the debate becomes vicious and malicious, where students can't engage in academic, intellectual, factual debates, is when that is an issue. That is when we need to think, okay, maybe it's time that we have to think how we set up these spaces, how we agree with one another, how we debate, and how we formulate these ideas. I think it's really important that providing them space is perfectly fine. Just because they may disagree or they may have a point of view is not a problem. But once it gets to the point where it would start to harm her ability to voice your opinion and to voice what Rwanda would like to say, then that's an issue. That becomes an issue because it restricts students' freedom to speak. It restricts their ability to voice their opinions. We as a university support the idea of intellectual discussion, factual debate, and bases that are supported with academic, peer-reviewed, and non-peer-reviewed, student-reviewed as well, scholarly journals and articles. As a university, we are to support academic discussion, and we are to support students' excellency towards research and towards development across the country, and to become a university that represents York University and the incoming Canadian image of what we are to look like in Canada, as to support a multicultural idea. And I think giving pro-choice student space on campus is perfectly fine, but it's in with the confines of intellectual debate, where it does not harm another student, and where it does not limit the debate, and it does not limit the freedom of expression that people may have. Because in debate, we are supposed to have that. In debating, you're supposed to have factual responses, 30 seconds response time, no cross-talking, being able to express each other's ideas. Would you like to speak on this?
Basically reiterate everything that you just said. Again, as an institution, we encourage freedom of expression, we encourage free speech, and students should be able to do that in safe spaces. We should be allowed to encourage discussion on any topic, whether it be pro-abortion, anti-abortion, it doesn't matter. But again, within limitations, as long as you are not harming another individual, you are not infringing on their own safe space, it's not a problem.
There was supposed to be a debate scheduled on abortion at the Student Center. I think the YFS at the time actually said the debate should not go through, and then York administration stepped in and it was held somewhere else on campus. So I was just wondering if that can be, if you could sort of tie that in with what you just spoke.
So political correctness.
Yeah.
So would you like to start this one? Because I started the last one. No? Okay. So political correctness on both campuses has been an issue, but I think there is a point in the discussion that safer spaces, inclusion of spaces, and making sure that students feel safe is not going to be the reason why things or issues are killed, or like not killed, but like you put down an issue or you limited you stuckled. Exactly, that's a great word to use. I think that it should be that you can debate academically. Emotional rhetoric is not going to win a debate. Emotional rhetoric only hurts other people's feelings, and it only leads you to dead ends, realistically. A lot of politicians use emotional rhetoric to win votes of pity, which is not what we need. What we need is academic debates. So if someone wants to have a debate on pro-choice and pro-life, then absolutely. I can't speak for the YFS in that time period. I can't speak to the decisions they made because I was not there. I did not make that decision. I was not a part of that.
What decision
but
would you have made?
I think I would have supported the idea of having an academic space where students led it, because I think students should be the forefront of leading these conversations. We are the next generation. We are the future. We are going to lead this world, nation, Ontario, this city, this university to the next level. As a university that has some difficulties across the board with gaining students, we need to recognize that it has to be us to start these discussions. It has to be us to support these conversations. And it can't be the administration, because the administration is supposed to be there to support us. And I think the administration always is working to support us, but has room to grow, like any other institution does. Bureaucracy has room to grow. I prefer meritocracies, but they always have room to grow. And I think that the administration had to do that is a telling sign. It's a concern that we need to be vigilant about when those happen, because students were not given the availability to have a debate in the student center to speak about pertinent issues to students. I think that be it a minority or a majority opinion, you should always be able to voice it without insulting your other students. When I hear that other students are facing anti-Semitic comments on a day-to-day basis, it makes me extremely horrified. When I hear that there's Islamophobia going on a day-to-day basis, to another student. How? York University is founded on students that are primarily first time coming to university, low income, low retention rates. University that is doing their utmost best. You go to a York University convocation and you go and watch the graduates. And the graduates are from all kinds of different backgrounds. We have over 150 different active citizenships in this university. And you're telling me that students from York University are saying to each other racist slurs, that the YFS and their AGM had to make it a law, a bylaw, that they can't and don't support racist comments? Is that what it's come to? That it's come to the point that we need bureaucracy to make the rules because we don't have enough of a moral compass to know the difference of what's slander, what's an insult, is utterly horrifying to me. Canada was based on multicultural rights and freedoms. We are based on the idea of multiculturalism. We try our utmost best to live up to those standards. And my incumbent, my partner, my friend, undoubtedly supports me in this. I can guarantee it.
Would you like to add anything?
As a visible minority, as a person of color, as someone who faces Islamophobic comments on a day-to-day basis since I was a child, as someone who has been attacked repeatedly, I agree 100% with what he just said. As a student union, as a university, as an administration, they shouldn't be supporting any kind of hate speech, any kind of slurs, any of that behavior. We started with a question about abortion and free speech and pro-life. You asked about the 2008 debate. I was in middle school at that point, so I have no idea about the situations on campus at that point. So I can't be the judge to say whether the situation on the floor, on the grounds, how students were feeling in that current situation. Some might have felt like they were being personally attacked because of personal experiences if a debate was to occur. So why it was canceled, I don't know. But like Anthony just said, it's so incredibly important to start these discussions, because if we don't start them, they're not happening. We need to be talking about these issues because, again, we continue to reiterate the fact that students are at the front of social change. And if we're not, if we don't have these discussions, whether it be about divestment or about abortion or about racism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, Black Lives Matter, all of this stuff, these discussions aren't happening. There will be no social change, and we are going to be stuck in the same spot that we have always been.
If not you, then who?
If you remain neutral in situations of injustice, you are automatically taking the side of the oppressor, if I'm not mistaken. And I refuse to be considered an oppressor.
I guess I really want to hammer home the differences between you, and it does come down to just policy differences, and basically you want to do some disability audits.
So the policies that Lyft YU would like to enact are policies of an accessibility audit. Sorry. We would like to enact an accessibility audit. We would like to lobby against the $750 international student fees, recognizing the struggles of international students. We would also like to do a financial audit within the YFS itself. And not like your regular audit, an audit to say why we spend this much, where we're spending this much, what's the reasoning behind spending the much. So it's not just a budget, it would actually be going into actualities, it would be going into assets and expenses like usual, but then it would also go further as to give reasoning. We would also like to do, following like other major universities in the country has done, insurance audits. So this would be auditing our insurance policy to see if we're making the correct payments. So not the correct payments in amount, but the correct amount. So like when we say we're going to give an insurance deposit, we are not just giving a payment, we're giving a deposit. And we would also like to make the opt-out process easier. And then specifically myself is 24-hour food options, 24-hour library services throughout the year more. I would also like to, specifically because I'm a Glendon student, so the Glendon students at home watching, I would like to do a YFS sponsored shuttle. The reason why we have, so talking to the past presidents of the GCSU, which is, for those that don't know, is the Glendon College Student Union. Hi! Student union that I've been a part of. Very happy to. The reason why that some of the issues was that bus drivers weren't being paid for those hours that we have missing shuttles. So I think the YFS with a $3.2 million budget, or, well, this year was 3.1, close to 3.2, has, from their release in this past year in 2015 to 2016 budget, and of October, it wasn't at 3.2, but it's like in their millions. I don't know what it is at now because there's obviously another budget that needs to come out, but 3.2 is their usual. I think there's enough money there to play around with to have a YFS shuttle bus, which would be really cool. And then as well as getting $99 TTC Metro passes. We have enough money. There is money to pull out of different avenues, as well as, if need be, we could always fund for the TTC Metro Pass. And I think with reliance to my other candidates in my party, we are fully looking forward to the fact of working with other universities in the GTA to voice larger issues at hand. Rwana mentioned Black Lives Matter. I think it would be really cool to have a joint university where all the universities come together to represent one voice. I think that students in the CFS, students in Ontario, students in the GTA need to come together more often on huge issues of Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, racism, homophobia, being queer myself. It's an issue that I think is not just the university, but it's institutionalized. Bureaucracies work as institutions, and it's the need to push forward as a unit. We need to represent ourselves, like to Quebec. But I would like to point out that they do protests every single year as huge majority of students. Their tuition's super low compared to ours. Newfoundland and Labrador has a freeze on their tuition. I think that students coming all together and representing one voice is an ideal, but being pragmatic throughout the year is definitely what we would like to do, and being real and trying to do our best to attain those goals. And Lift YU would like to support those ideas and support those policies that will get students rallied behind those ideas. And it's student voices that we've heard and that we keep on hearing cry for these pleas of need and desire and want. And we would like to be the ones to be able to support you into the coming year, especially with Frosh and with the incoming students, and making sure that they don't experience some of the things that have happened. And I can't guarantee they won't, because I can't do that, because I'm human. But what I do want to do is I want to try and say to those students that are going to come in that York University is becoming the university that we were always meant to be, and that we are a university that strives for excellency.
Thanks. Roman?
I'd like to talk about one that I'm actually extremely passionate about. I'm looking forward, if elected, of course, I'm looking forward to getting OHIP for international students. Currently, international students pay 3 to 4 times as much as us domestic students do. They have UHIP. UHIP does not cover what it needs to cover, nor is it accepted everywhere. So I'd like to lobby to get OHIP for those international students. They spend most of their year here. We actually have 2 international students on my slate, Alexandria and Mary. Both of them are international students, and I have listened to them voicing their opinions on these things, and about the fact that when they're sick, they have to travel just to find a place that accepts UHIP, which is ridiculous. Hospitals, not all of them accept UHIP, which is ridiculous. It's unjust. I would love to get OHIP for international students. From my time here at York, the conversations that I've had with international students, they feel like they're not being represented enough by the York Federation students, and I can see why they would feel that way. They seem to be forgotten a lot of the time, even though they're here so they can live a better life, so they can receive a better education, and they can get the best experience that they can possibly get. I'd love to give that to them. In addition to that, he mentioned a bunch of stuff. I'd like to continue.
sorry.
No worries. You're passionate, as am I, so it's fantastic. One of my personal campaign points, again, is the Fight for 15. At the AGM, they passed a motion saying that they would pay all their part-time students working for the YFS $15 come this September. I'd like to continue that motion. I'd like to lobby the administration for them to pay their part-time students $15 as a part of a bigger national movement. If a university as large as York University with over 52,000 students agrees to pay their students a living wage rather than a part-time wage that supports them not at all, does not support them, I think that is a huge victory. And again, we're part of the social movement. We are at the forefront of the social movement. And if we can achieve that, anyone can, right? There are so many things we want to do. And all we're asking for really is for the student body to see those things that we want to do, to understand the things that we want to do, and understand that we're doing it for them. We're trying to represent the undergraduate student body because we are undergraduates. Like he said, we've experienced things on a day-to-day basis that a lot of people do, and we'd like to be there to voice their concerns, to voice their experiences, because a lot of people don't have the chance to do that. I'm lucky enough to be here to talk about my experiences as a Muslim woman, as a person of color. He's here to talk about his experiences, if you don't mind,
Go right ahead.
as a queer person, and not a lot of people get the chance to be in a position like this where they can actually have people to listen to them. We're here because we want people to listen to not only our experiences, not only our voice, but the student bodies.
How do you guys plan on reaching out to the student body if elected?
Sorry, how do we plan?
Yeah.
You want to take this one first?
Yeah, the YFS is consistently going to events, is consistently having a fantastic relationship with most student clubs that are affiliated with them. I think they do a fantastic job with that. I personally am a part of several groups and organizations on campus, and every time we host an event, the YFS is there. Anytime we have concerns, open door, I can walk in and I can voice my concerns, and they're there to listen. Every single executive has been completely understanding. Their staff is completely understanding, and they're willing to listen, and that's what they're here for.
I'm just curious if this would extend to the elections. So would you advertise the elections on social media? Or the debates, the elections, so that you could boost turnout?
They were.
Yeah.
I don't think the debate was.
The reason the debate, from what I understand, the reason the debate isn't actually advertised that much is because it's not actually part of the bylaws. It is not part of the election process. This is a voluntary thing from both sides, from any parties that are involved. We personally did tell folks about it. So did they. You folks had an event page. We invited everyone. So in terms of the York Federation of Students, because the current executive board is not allowed to be part of the election process, so the current staff is not allowed to be part of the election process unless they're on the elections committee, they can't really advertise these things past the point where it's like, hey, the elections are going on, if you want to apply for a CRO position, they have nothing to do with it. So that's the reason why they don't advertise these things.
Would you say it's a concern that the turnout at the Kiel debate was very low, or that the voter turnout overall is low? Would you say these are concerns for you?
I think that the democratic process is extremely reliant on voter turnout. Democracy as a theory is great, but like many things in practice, it sometimes doesn't work out. And at a commuter campus where right now there's a lot of midterms going on, it's almost reading week, there's a lot of projects, I could agree that both of us have a few research proposals in the making, or a midterm test, or a midterm project along the way. All of the election teams have projects, tests. I just came back from class today before coming to here. It's very difficult to get students out in this high tense season where a lot of your GPA rests on the marks you're going to be getting. But efforts to be made due next year, absolutely. For both of us, noted that I think that both of us next year, either one of us on the executive board would definitely make the movement and the possible motion to enact a institutional debate potentially, because I think that would be the best way of doing it. And I think getting not only the listservs from our sponsored clubs or the people that are around us, but the people that are active, but all students, all emails, all potentially going through the largest administrative bodies, if it was from the principal's office down, and sending an email across the campus to every single body on this institution to be like, your student union is running an election. Your students are putting their grade point average at the line. We are putting our time and effort. We both were talking before this about how we're sleepless nights, taking melatonin or taking chamomile tea to go to sleep at night. It should be that the institution recognizes this, that the student unions recognize this, that the college councils recognize this, that clubs recognize. To work as this, to make this system better, we all need to think about this and think we need as many students as possible at these debates. Even at the Glendon debates, there was a little bit of a low turnout. There was more turnout, but there wasn't as many. It wasn't as low as the Keel. And I think it was just the people that were in the cafeteria at the time. And that's the difference. And it's quite saddening to see that, because you think in a democracy where people have died for our rights, we have people on campus that fight for democracy. We have campus clubs that fight for human rights. And democracy doesn't always work. It is corrupt. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's not perfect. Democratic theory doesn't work. Democratic peace theory doesn't work. But I think that it's extremely important to get out people to think and to go vote and to go out. I don't care if you vote for student action. Well, I do care, but I think that it's really important that if you work for student action, myself, the block, or the other independents, you should go out and vote. You should go out and vote. Your vote matters. People die on a day-to-day basis to have a say, a 1-point say in the ability to choose who leads their nation. And even at to that point, democracy is not even working, because the people that have the ability to vote aren't the people. They are a small minority that are ruling a large state and that are treating people in inhumane actions. And I'm not going to name any specific state, because every state in history has destroyed, eliminated, committed genocide, or murdered groups of people. No one is free. The legal institution to commit violence are states. And I think democracy is doing its best, or at least trying to tip that. And I think having a democratic vote matters. And taking it back to the institution, we complain about York University, then we need to make the effort to vote. We need to make the effort to be participating. We need to make sure that students are putting their voice into these matters, because the active... I'm so sorry. Forgive me.
You're good at talking. Congratulations.
I'm so sorry.
Congratulations.
I'm
That
so
was funny.
sorry.
That was a
I'm
good-
so
no,
sorry.
It's all right. With regards to the debate, it's everything that you said. This is a very tense time for most students. It's hard to come out. Even as a candidate, it's hard for me to come out to these things. I'm juggling organizations. I'm juggling schoolwork. I'm juggling family. It's hard. I think both parties are trying their very best to engage students and let them know that, hey, we're here to hear your voice. We're here to represent you. This is what's going on right now. Exercise your right to vote. Make an educated vote, because at the end of the day, these are the people that are going to represent you for an entire year. So it's difficult. Again, it's a commuter school. It's midterm season. People really don't care right now about anything besides their GPA, about their schoolwork. And we're trying our best to let them know that, hey, but we care about you.
Why should they care to vote? Why should I care?
Because they're representing you. The York Federation of Students is the undergraduate student union,
What does
right?
that mean, representing me? Like, I'm trying to understand why I should care.
Because there are so many different campaigns and so many different initiatives that are started from YFS so they can better your life and better your life on campus. For example, lowering tuition fees. Yes, we're students, but that also directly affects you folks in the room. We are paying the highest tuition fees in Canada, students in Ontario.
what are you doing to kind of combat that? How are you going to actually change that? Because a lot of students, they don't think it's possible.
Tuition fees?
Yeah.
Okay, I can understand why students think it's impossible. People have been making promises for years on years on years. People think that there haven't been advancements when in reality there have been. For example, the $300 enrollment fee that folks had to pay within a month was officially eliminated last year because of the YFS's work with the administration. However, I personally don't think that we're asking for enough. To eliminate a few fees isn't enough. To ask for a freezing of fees is not enough, considering we are paying, again, the highest amount of tuition fees in all of Canada. We need to be asking for more than just a freeze. We need to actually come together. We need to educate the student body on the process of lobbying. That is the first step, to educate and to mobilize and to come together and say, we don't want a freeze. We don't want elimination of fees. We want lower tuition fees. That's what we want. Like he mentioned earlier, Newfoundland and Labrador recently froze their fees. They do pay less than us, so that was a successful attempt. In addition to that, though, they turned all of their loans into grants. So students, once they receive those grants, they don't have to worry about paying it back. Education is a human right. We shouldn't have to be worrying about whether or not I can't eat for the night.
Oh my God.
Or I'm working 3 part-time jobs, or I have my family at home, but I don't see them because I'm running around trying to get this education. So yeah, it seems like it's impossible. I can see why people can say that, but there have been advancements. But it's time to ask for more. It's time to say that, you know what, I'm here because I need an education, because this capitalist society hasn't given me any other choice, right? I'm here to educate myself so I can further succeed in my life, and I shouldn't be in debt, I shouldn't be starving, I shouldn't be homeless because of this education.
What if I'm graduating next year and I've already paid my tuition fees and I don't see how it's possible in changing anything for the next year? What do you think pragmatically either of you could do to fight against tuition rising within the next year? How are you going to change that within a year?
May I?
Yes.
Thank you.
may.
I want to ask. I always ask.
No, it's fine.
So, like I mentioned before, the universities in the GTA, the CFS, the Ontario universities, the universities in the GTA, the colleges in the GTA and abroad need to come together. And I understand that universities have their differences, and we're all pitting for the same amount of high school students, and we're all combating each other because some student unions don't get along with other student unions. And fine, I get that. But we are all suffering. Some students, every single day, graduation is the ability to get to class on time. Being, like you mentioned, being able to feed yourself is a congratulations. Being able to pay the rent on time is an amazing feat of effort. Due to the fact that tuition is stressing our students, we wonder, why is 1 in 5 individuals facing mental illness? We wonder, why are all our students stressed out? Why are all our students depressed? Why is everyone so mentally ill nowadays?
How do we stop tuitions from going up within the next few years?
The way we do that is going to be by lobbying the government. It's going to have to be that every single student comes out for a day or a week or for a month or for however long, and it's gonna be painful. No one said it's ever gonna be easy. No one ever said that this process is going to be painless and that you're going to be able to do whatever you want to do within this time period. But what we need to do is we need to come as one voice, one body that supports each other and recognizes we're all students.
So kind of like the Quebec student movement, kind of that model?
I would support that model. And if any other model were to come up, I would support that model as well. I would want to hear what students have to say. If another student has a better idea than me, then I want that student to voice that opinion. I want that student to come up to me. It's about participation as a unit, as a family, as a group, as recognizing we're human beings being oppressed by large governments that can control our lives, that destroy the livelihood of people that want an education, people that want to succeed in life, people that want to make Canada better, that want to go back home and make their lives better back home, wherever their home may be. May it be York University, Toronto, or another country across the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean.
I was actually just going to say that earlier you mentioned that students criticize the fact that there hasn't been any advancements in terms of tuition fees. They just seem to keep rising, even though several people keep promising that, no, this is the time that we're going to lower it. The first problem is that people don't think it's achievable. They need to be educated on the student movement to understand that this is achievable. What happened in Newfoundland and Labrador happened because of a student movement. Because they banded together and said, no, we don't want this anymore because we are the students, we are the ones that are directly affected by this, and we won't have it anymore. For me, personally, I don't think that there's enough student voices on these decision-making boards. The people who decide to keep raising tuition, they don't hear our perspective whatsoever. And for them to hear our perspective, we need to let them know that we are here, we have a voice, and whether you like it or not, you need to hear it. You need to hear that we won't accept this anymore. You need to hear that we're not happy with these tuition fees. You need to hear that we won't settle for a freezing of tuition fees, and we want more. For us to have any form of change, we need to educate ourselves first and foremost. We need to come together, like he said, whether it's within the YFS, within the York administration, within Ryerson, within York. We need to come together because we are the student movement. We are the ones that are directly affected by this on a day-to-day basis. I personally have had to work 2 part-time jobs at one point. It's not fun. It's too stressful. I suffer from anxiety problems. Not that I should have disclosed that, but I did anyways, because of these things. Because we're put in a situation where we don't have any other choice. And we need to demand that other choice for us to have any improvements.
What happens if the government keeps ignoring us? What do we do then?
So I have a professor at Glendon campus. He was in my first year, and it was an international studies course on the philosophy, society, and the history of international studies. And it's a multidisciplinary course in economics, history, and poli-sci and international relations. And his name is Jean-Michel, and we all call him JM because he's amazing, and we love him. And he said at the end of the course that it's always easy to be the realist than it is to be the optimist. And I think it's always easy to go up front to be able to say, what if the government keeps on ignoring us? Well, then they keep on ignoring us, and we're going to keep on knocking. We're going to keep on banging on their door until it barges down from whatever street they live on, from whatever institution they hold, whatever government office they have. We are going to keep on banging.
Isn't the definition of an insanity repeating the same actions and expecting different
Albert
results?
Einstein, yes, it is, and I love Albert Einstein. I understand that he created the atomic bomb, and I disagree with nuclear proliferation, but his quotes speak volumes, and I don't represent his nuclear proliferation of creating the atomic bomb, but I don't think he really knew what was being created. I don't know. But that quote is essentially what is posted on my walls. Keep on going. I don't know, like if you're having struggles in a class, like you keep on going. If you're having struggles in your day-to-day life, you keep on going. I'm not going to say that's going to get any better. I don't believe in it gets better.
The tactics should change.
The tactics.
I'm going to say, you asked me what tactics that I would change in order to get this done. If they don't listen the first time, which is what you asked, you change tactics. You keep changing tactics. You recruit more people. You mobilize even more. You educate even more until you have an even larger movement that cannot be ignored.
Exactly.
Will they continue attempting to ignore us? Yes, they will. But like he said, we're going to keep trying. That's not insanity. That's perseverance. That's optimism, and that's dedication.
That's fine. He was just saying we're going to keep banging on their doors. I just want to
No,
make
the
sure
bang-
that he's not
Not literally banging on their doors. My God, you're gonna get like a lawsuit.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was getting at.
Metaphorically.
Yeah, I understand, but we keep going.
Keep
That's
going,
my
yeah,
answer.
Sure. I'm just trying to see tactically how it's going to look like. Because I've seen this activism in Ontario for quite some time, and it doesn't really seem to be going anywhere. And because we're so different from Quebec.
We are.
And what they've done is quite amazing. I'm not sure if we have the ability to do what Quebec did. So I'm just wondering, I guess I'm a bit of a pessimist and not thinking that anything will change within at least the next 4 years. What do you think about that?
I think that I agree. Ontario is different, and I recognize that we are different. Being a Glendon student, to all the Quebec folk at home, je sais, tout le monde c'est différent parce que c'est nécessaire pour comprendre la différence entre le ontarien, le québécois, le franco-ontarien et le franco-canadien. Et c'est différence. Et la différence c'est vrai. Et je sais. Mais quand je vois l'institution de York University et je vois le difficile toutes les personnes ici combattent, I understand and I hear those cries. And how are we going to change tactics? To answer your question, is that, like Rowana said, we are going to keep on changing our tactics every single time it fails. And every single time it fails, we are going to admit it that we made a fault. And I think the most important process of any social movement is reflection and re-education. It's reflection. Our institution in leadership development, I work for Student Success Center. I'm on an unpaid leave of absence currently to run in the elections. But I work in the Student Success Center. It used to be the Student Community and Leadership Development as a leadership assistant. As well as at Glendon, I work as an office assistant for Glendon Explore, for Glendon Extended Learning. And whenever there's an issue that we don't know how to resolve, and we've come to a fault, and we come to a failure, or you've hit the runt, you've hit a wall, you reflect, you move on, and you learn from those mistakes, and you build up on it. So if you're asking for a specific tactic, which I think you are, instead of metaphorically speaking, I think it's going to be educating. Well, actually, no. I think it's going to be polling. I think it's going to start by hearing what the students have to say. So it's going to be town halls. It's going to be surveys. It's going to be petitions. It's going to be student voices that need to be heard first. And then it's going to come to the part of where we do our research. We go academically and we pull out the facts. We pull out the hard research. I think it's really important when doing NGOs across the board. Always have a research team. Always have someone doing research on what the issues are and piling in a hard document so you can present it and saying, here's the issues. The CFS does this every single time they start a new initiative. You see the facts. They make pamphlets. They make these wonderful booklets, these beautifully colorful like infographics that I love looking at, but they make it easy to read, and they pull out the facts with their statistics, with their footnotes, with their bibliographies, works cited, journal articles, professors. They go across Canada and they gain these voices. And then from that point forward, we go into starting to create an action plan. And in student leadership, we have a change model, the social change model that we follow. But I think it will be coming to the fact of where we start talking to students, asking, how do we see change happening on our campus? How do we see change happening in the institutional level? How do we take different routes? Because different tactics are going to be aimed at different audiences. Because we can't just make a general one size fits all. It's going to have to be different tactics for different audiences. So if I'm going to try to attack tuition fees, we're going to have to do the institution, we're going to have to do the government, we're going to have to do the people, the general public. And the way we advertise, the way we market ourselves is going to have to vary amongst the age groups, amongst the demographics, amongst the income brackets, amongst who we're talking to, the degrees, who has a degree, who doesn't, recognizing where are these differences. And then also, whose voice are we not hearing? Who's not in the conversation? Who's not able to be in the conversation? Why are they not in the conversation? Always, that question should be the forefront of our minds. Who's not in the conversation? Because all the time in boardrooms across this campus, there's always someone left out of the conversation. So different tactics aimed at those different markets, correct? And from that point, we get results. And after we get those results, we see what they are. So if we got a pickup from a government, we got onto we got a motion put in and it failed. Example, Queen's Park. Let's say a motion failed and we put it in a resolution, failed again. The MPs don't see it going anywhere. Then we have to gain general public. We need to get the general public to recognize that this is affecting their students. And why is it important to the general public, to an income earner? Why is it important to a Bay Street businessman of what students are getting or not getting. We have to make them see the importance. We have to make them see, why is it, it's not how it's important to me, but it's why is it important to you and to you and to you? How is it important to you? We have to learn why is it important to you, and then from that point we advertise to those ways, those sort of nodes, those sort of modes, those mediums. What do you use as your social media? What do you go home and do every first time you go home at day? If it involves Facebook advertisements to TCCs, advertisements to working with a TTC to say, hey, so students want to pay, but they can't pay because tuition's too high. Let's talk about this.
Ron?
I feel like in contrast to Anthony, I'm a woman of very few words. I don't like to talk very much.
I'm so sorry.
They're passionate words, but they're very few words, so I apologize if that's a problem for any of you folks. Again, I said earlier that we weren't asking for enough, and like he said, I also said earlier that we aren't included in those discussions, the discussions that decide on whether or not these tuitions are going to rise or lower or that kind of stuff. And then Anthony mentioned that not everyone is included in these discussions, and we need to make an effort to make sure that everyone is included in these discussions. A student movement doesn't leave anyone behind. This is an inclusive space. We make sure that everyone is represented because everyone is directly affected. So I agree with him on that point. We need to make sure that everyone is part of these discussions. We need to make sure that everyone is aware of what's going on, and we need to make sure that everyone is demanding the same thing and they want the same thing. I think it's achievable. It just needs to be organized and passionate, and we need to be ready.
Do you guys think we covered a lot here today? Is there anything you'd like to add?
The debates were slightly disappointing, not much of a turnout, not much of a discussion. I think we both encourage discussion from both parties. This is a democracy, as he said several times within this meeting. I am Rawan Habib. I'm running for VP Campaigns and Advocacy because I believe there is so much we can do on this campus. I believe we can represent so much, and I'm ready to hear those voices that are not currently being heard. I am running with Student Action, a team of people, a team of individuals that are doing the same exact thing, that want the same goals for next year, that hold the same values. And I want everyone to come out to vote next week on February 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. We discussed earlier how there isn't much of a turnout, and I really want people to understand that these people that are running, that these people that are trying, these candidates, we're trying to represent them, and we are trying to appeal to these audiences, and we want them to know that we have great things in store for them if they would only listen and if they would only figure out these things that they want, so we can listen to them because we're willing. We want to hear these ideas, and we want to get elected, and we want to make some serious change on campus. We want to be on the forefront of the student movement, of social change, of all this stuff. So vote Student Action, because we're awesome.
So, once again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for watching this. I'm sorry for rambling. My mother tells me to shut up every now and then and listen more. So, thank you so much. My name's Anthony Brom, and I'm running for the Vice President Campaigns and Advocacy position with Lift YU. Please vote on the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th next week at your local polling stations on both campuses. So myself and Melissa Calanza for President, Louis Dibb for VP Campus Life, Raul for VP Operations, and then Barsha Ghosh for VP Campus Life, and then Louis Dibb for VP Equity. Oops. And the reason why I'm motivated to run for this position is because I want the people at home to know that I would prefer, and I think that across the board, any candidate wants more student participation. We want your voices to be heard. We want to be the reason why. We want you to infect us, to be able to create motions. We care about you. We care about your voices. We care about your thoughts. We want to support you in doing what you want to do. And we want to be the people that serve you, that serve your notions, that serve your ideas, your change. And we want to be in an active, open conversation where student engagement, student culture, and inclusion are the most important thing, where you're heard across the board. Donc, toutes les personnes à Glendon, je vais envoyer un grand merci pour tout le temps ici et pour l'attention pour voir cette vidéo. Et merci pour votre temps, merci pour l'attention. Et je envoie tout le amour, le love, and le remercie. Thank you so much.